Today's guest is the head coach of the 2018 NAIA Division II national champion Indiana Wesleyan, Coach Greg Tonagel. Coach Tonagel, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Hey, Coach, we'll get right into it. The 2018 national championship was your third in the last 5 years at Indiana Wesleyan. What has allowed your program to sustain success this long?
That's a great question, and it'd be hard to maybe give one answer. A lot of factors go into winning something like that. It starts with great people as part of the organization, and we've got a great administration here. Our coaching staff, obviously, I believe highly in and love them, and we've had extremely talented players. But all that's got to come together, and I think the culture here at Indiana Wesleyan has provided that platform for our guys to come together and just be such a unified group for a sole purpose.
And when you mention a sole purpose, how would you define that purpose?
Yeah, for us, I mean, every organization has its own culture, and every team and university maybe goes at it a little differently. And ours is a pursuit of I am third, and which is a little counter-cultural, I would say. It's what we tell our guys: if you want to be first find a way to be third. And so our goal isn't necessarily to win a national championship, but the byproduct of pursuing three, which is God first, others second, yourself third, has unified our group and given us that sole purpose, and has rallied us around something bigger than ourselves. Because I think what we've all found out in coaching is there's a me first pursuit, and often that doesn't lead to team success, but it doesn't even lead to individual success also.
You mentioned building that I am third culture. Was that something that you felt like had to be built and sustained before your team could start having the success you guys have found in the postseason?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been here 13 years, and the culture is growing every year, and I hope it never stops. But it took years, probably 5 or 6 years, before we really felt like the culture was reproducing and transmitting itself to the next group, to the next recruiting class. And as guys fully started growing into that concept, and as coaches, really, we had to learn it. We had to grow into it. You can't teach something that you're not becoming yourself. And I think every year as we learn and we grow, we can better transmit and teach our guys. And as we've done that, I think what we've seen is we've done less coaching and our players have done more. And like a lot of coaches know, and I think they understand, when your players are coaching the team, when your players are transmitting the culture, the potential for the team is always it has a higher ceiling.
When you start a season, when you start this upcoming season, what kind of expectations and goals do you set for your program? Given your success, is it really national championship or bust, or are there other goals and expectations that your program has?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think if you're always hanging on the expectations of others, one, you'll never satisfy them because they're never going to be satisfied. They're always asking, give us more, give us more. But then you put maybe an unfair burden on your team, a little too much pressure. And like I said, our championships have been a byproduct of several things, and namely the pursuit of three. And if we can get our guys to leave the pursuit of me and instead embrace the pursuit of three, then along the way, along the journey, we become somebody. So whether or not we win the national championship, we still become somebody, we still grow, we still find a lot of value in that. I think we all want the national championships, and those are icings on the cake. But if that's all we get, and through this process we don't become changed people, we don't grow through the process, I think we're shortchanging ourselves of what this whole thing is really about.
You mentioned your student athletes sometimes feeling that pressure to live up to the success of past teams. How do you help your players and your program manage that pressure that they inevitably feel being in such a successful program?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing happened to me probably 6 years ago. I started learning about fear and how fear played into either success or failure, and really changed it completely how I coached. I met a guy, Donnie Bostwick, who's now back at Oklahoma Wesleyan. But basically, I had this perception that my job as a coach was to control, was to rein in, and learning now that the greatest way that I can take my players to a new level is to remove fear from the game. And so there's a lot of different ways to remove fear from the game. Fear no longer is the great motivator. It's the great paralyzer. So we're constantly asking that question of how do we remove fear from the game as coaches?
You're a former point guard, a former student athlete at Valparaiso. How did playing the sport at one of its highest levels, at the collegiate level, impact your future as a head coach?
And every experience I had has played into coaching. And obviously the playing at Valparaiso was huge for that. I was a local kid, grew up in the state of Indiana, which Hoosier hysteria is, there's nothing like it. But then to go 30 minutes down the road and play for Coach Homer Drew. And I grew up, so Bryce Drew was a guy that I idolized as a kid. I wanted to be like. So I got to kind of step into there and learn the game. And I went through a series of injuries through college. Probably the best thing that happened to me, the fact that I got injured and had multiple surgeries, and I had to sit out and watch the game from a totally different perspective. And at the time, I had no idea. I was frustrated, wondering why me. But looking back now, I understand. It drew me into coaching. It gave me a new perspective, and it allows me now to identify with much of what my players are dealing with on a daily basis.
You mentioned the Drew family playing for Homer, who obviously anybody in the coaching circle knows the name Homer Drew. What did you learn most from Coach Drew, and what do you now try to take from playing for him into your program there at Indiana Wesleyan?
Yeah, I mean, I got hired. I was 24 years old. I basically knew nothing but what I'd learned from Coach Drew. So I tried to apply a lot of what he had taught me. And Coach had been around. Coach had understood the relational side of things with players, and he was really the reason I got this job. He was such a big name in the state. When the job came open, he picked up the phone because I had no resume to hang my hat on or anything. So I owe a lot to the Drew family for getting me this job. But then the conversations have continued. You know, early on, I would call him often and say, hey, I'm with this situation, you know, what do I do? Well, when a guy's been around as long as he has and has had that success, he had a wealth of information to offer me.
Obviously, Coach Drew has made a lot of impact in your career. How do you now try to, I guess, pay it forward and have that same impact to staff that coach under you?
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point, and I didn't have this early on, I really struggled with this, but I began to realize that I've been put in this position not for my own benefit, but for the benefit of others. And that doesn't just include players. That's a coaching staff. And figuring out how do I empower these guys to be successful and how do I grow them. And I think going through and walking with my assistant coaches daily, not as subordinates to me, but these are friends, these are colleagues of mine, and we're going to do this together, and I'm going to do my best to position them to be successful, has made this whole journey of coaching really fun.
And then we'll close with this, Coach. What leadership styles and what coaching traits do you think have been the most influential for you achieving both personal and program success in your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so for me, I'm in a Christian school, and my heart is to empower these young men in their faith and in the journey of becoming more like Christ. So I really see this as it's very relational. It's relational discipleship set in a transformational community. So we're going to live life with these guys and walk through struggles with them. And I'm going to hopefully share my struggles with them, but in a community that says we accept you for who you are, but yet we're going to help you grow forward. And as we've done that, we've all grown. We've all become better men. Hopefully the guys that graduate from this program understand that they're going to step into a community and they're going to hopefully view it like they did their team. And their job is to help others grow. And their success isn't going to be measured probably by dollars, position, power, all those things, even though I want them to pursue, excellence. Their success is going to be defined by how they grow others, how they impact their communities, how they benefit their families. Because I think our society needs more of that.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Congratulations on another national championship in the spring, and good luck to your team in the upcoming season.
Hey, thanks, Eric. I appreciate the opportunity.